about the UFW in Texas. I'm not going to read all of this. You can read it from the presentation that you can get right there. But basically, right, it was organized in Texas in 1966 as the United Farm Workers Organizing Committee. And the committee set out to organize farm workers in Texas in 1966 during the Starr County strike. Although the UFW did not establish a bona fide farm workers union affiliate in Texas, during the 1960s it drew attention to the conditions under which agricultural laborers worked. And in 1972, the committee received an independent charter from the AFL-CIO and became the United Farm Workers AFL-CIO. And here we have Rebecca Flores. She was born in Atascosa County, Texas, and raised in and around San Antonio in a farm worker family. She traces her lineage to the Tejano land grant family. After graduating high school, she worked at Fort Sam Houston as a secretary and attended San Antonio College. At 23, she quit her job to enroll in Texas A&M University in Kingsville. While working on her master's degree in social work at the University of Michigan, she became involved in the Chicano-Chicana student community and began to participate in labor actions. After marrying, she and her then husband returned to Texas, and he began working with the United Farm Workers Union through his job at the American Civil Liberties Union. It was through that connection that Flores became involved with the UFW, eventually being named director in South Texas, a role that she occupied for several years. So please help me in welcoming Rebecca Flores. Cool photos of you, Rebecca, from throughout your lifetime. Thank you so much for being here, Rebecca.
Thank you for inviting me. Pues ya dijo todo. I don't have anything else to say. Well, Kelly asked for me to come and talk about the work that I did, and I guess for how I started. First of all, let me tell you, I'm 83 years old. Okay, I was born in 43. In 43, ¿tú crees? And so my life, I've seen a lot of stuff happen in these 83 years. A lot of stuff. So I was born in Atascosa County, which you know is just south of here, racist little county, and so I was raised in that area where the Mexicanos. Actually, I went to the Mexican school. It was a little village school, and then I think something happened. I think LULAC happened, where they filed a lawsuit and they combined all the little schools that they had for Mexicanos and put us in Poteet school. Poteet, déjame decirlo, as racist and that's really because when I was in a little school, it was all my relatives, right, all Mexicanos, and so I frankly never seen a white person in my life, you know. Every once in a while we'd see one, but when I got to the school where there was a lot more whites, then almost immediately I understood what was happening. I was like in 6th grade when I said, oh, this is what's happening. Isn't that something? At what point in your life do you know this? Do you learn this? It's very interesting because we were like, you know, mira, one of the things that happened is that there was 5 girls and 1 boy in my family, and let me tell you, girls, I think you know it, right? We have like what we used to call the triple whammy, right? We're born women, right? Girls, we're poor, and we're Mexican, right? And so it was like 3 hits on us, you know, from the very, very beginning. And so the fact that we were girls, my father and mother nos protegían bastante, ¿verdad? They would say, you can't do these things, that, you know, girls don't do that kind of stuff and whatever, which is a detriment, right? Because we never learned how to swim, you know, we never learned how to ride a bike. No, we just didn't do those kinds of things. And so then, of course, we were poor and we lived in the country. We were totally isolated. We lived 10 miles from the little town. And so no salíamos, ¿verdad? The only people we saw were really our relatives. And we'd go and visit them. At that time, había una cosa bien bonita de la cultura. We would go and visit, right? On a Sunday. Todos nos íbamos y nos visitábamos con la tía o lo que sea, ¿verdad? And that was our social life, right? But it was all relatives. And so we grew up in that way, very sheltered, very isolated, girls. And we went to that school, and the education was horrible, as you can tell, right? As you can see, it's a small little village school, and all of it was bad. I'll tell you this, all of it was bad. They just made us Mexicans workers. That's really what the point of all of it was. Even here, when we finally moved into San Antonio, I went to Fox Tech, And that was when they made all the girls, stenographers, and I was good. I mean, there was nothing wrong with it. And really, when you think about it, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You get a skill and you learn and you live with it and you earn money so you can survive and stuff. But it just keeps you there, right? You talk about the glass ceiling, ya no puedes salir de allí. And so at Fox Tech, all the boys, and actually I think the boys had it better because I know a lot of the boys later, they had their own auto mechanic shops, they had their woodworking shops, they became independent businessmen, right? But the girls, all of us worked as stenographers for somebody. I got out of school and I worked at civil service, which was the job, right? In this town, if you got a job with civil service, you were like at the top, right? So anyway, let me go back to when I was growing up. My first memory of working in the fields was when I was 5 years old. We were crews, right? Our family was a crew. So it was mom and dad, and then us 5 girls and my brother. And so the first time I remember it, because something happened, is that we were planting strawberries for some polacos there. And so mom would, my sister Susie would poke a hole in the rows were toquetosos, ¿verdad? She would poke a hole in the ground. I would follow her and I'd throw down a strawberry plant, and then mom would come and she would plant it, she would cover it. So we had a crew of 3, and my dad had my other 2 sisters over there. So we're all working. The reason I remember it is because I had all the plants here in my arms, and they had ants on them, so I got ants. Ants covered me, and that's how I remember it. I mean, sometimes trauma makes you remember something, right? And that's what. So I was little. I was 5 years old, and already working in the field. Even though it was not a bad thing. When people say, "Oh man, that's bad," it wasn't a bad thing, right? We were all working together, and at that time we didn't have the worries of chemicals, pesticides, and you weren't going to be harmed by these chemicals that were sprayed. And so era más seguro. It was more, and we were all together, and we came together, we went home together, that kind of stuff. And so anyway, in the course of my very young life until we moved here to San Antonio, in 1956, when I was 13 years old, we harvested crops for all of my relatives in Atascosa County. They all had, the Mexicanos had small family farms there, and they don't anymore, right? They're gone. And so all of my relatives, my uncles and my aunts, had little farms, 40 acres small. My dad also, and so he would plant things and we would harvest, and we would go from farm to farm and help him out and stuff. And that's what we did. So I did all the vegetables, like cotton, and then one year we started migrating, picking cotton in South Texas. So we went to Mathis and Pearsall. We picked cotton there, but we were working with crew leaders. And a crew leader is a person who has a truck, right? And they hire a crew that works, on this farm. And so that's your kind of like your middleman, right? You have a guy who's managing you, and he's the one that takes care of your whatever, your chip or whatever that he pays. That's the way to count what you did. And so we would work with a crew leader. And I remember in Pearsall, this is when, I must have been like 10 years old. This was the whole idea of drinking water, right? They never would provide water for us. And this guy especially had, those big old wooden barrels, those big old wooden barrels? Well, this one had all the fungus on it, the green stuff on it, and he had he put the water in for us to drink, and he would ice it down so cold that we were sweating, because that's what Pearsall is hot. And you could hardly drink any of the water because it's so cold. Nos daba el agua con una copa de metal, a tin cup, and he had that tin cup tied to the barrel, and all of us drank out of the tin cup. All of us drank. It's disgusting. But that happened even on into, for a long time. For a long time, people were never given potable drinking water. That's bad, right? You have to drink water when you're working in the fields and stuff. And they just didn't do it. And they never, I don't know what goes on with growers, but they don't think of people as being, workers as being humans. They called us hands, right? They call workers hands. It's all they think is that we nomás tenemos brazos, ¿verdad? That's why they call the braceros, right? They never think that this is a human being attached to the hand, right? And so, anyway, so then what happened was there was a big drought in the 50s, and there was like no way you could earn any money. It was just like no way. And so we migrated into the Midwest. So we went and worked in Wisconsin. We picked cherries and did onions, and we did the betabel and all that kind of stuff, and then came back. And we didn't, we just didn't earn a lot of money. And so, and that happens to a lot of families. They use their car, they get in their car, and all the risks that they take in driving up, and it's their risk. And I'll tell you this, when I was United Farm Workers, I always heard of horrible accidents where people were killed on the highways when they were going to work in another state. And so we went and worked there, and I'll tell you, those states are just as bad as Texas. We nos daban una casita, and for the beds, they would get us those cotton sacks, and they would stuff them with corn husks. Have you ever tried to sleep on something like that? It was like horrible. And so anyway, it's just that kind of mistreatment of people who were doing the work for you for absolutely nothing. It was they couldn't even do that for us. They couldn't even do that for us. And so anyway, time goes on. We finally moved into San Antonio, and we went to school here and graduated and all of that. And you know my story of Fox Tech. We were tracked, and I don't know what happens to you all now. Oh, you're homeschooled. What happened? I don't know. You all are much younger than I am, obviously. But in 9th grade, they started tracking us, right? All the girls were going to do this kind of work. Do they do that still? Did they do that to you all? No. They would say, all the girls, you're going to be this, and all the boys.
They kind of still do it at high schools like Lanier.
Yeah.
Did they really?
Yeah, they still are very much
Like tech schools.
The tech schools? Yeah. Vocational schools.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they did in 9th grade. So in 9th grade, my destiny was already, carved out. This is what you're going to be. And frankly, that was what my mother and father thought that was a big thing, right? Oh yeah, that's what you're going to do, because that's all we knew. We just didn't have information. It was amazing. It was very controlled. Of course, the white people were getting, the best deals, and they knew. We just didn't know anything. And so, I graduated from Fox Tech, and actually, I've always had a high GPA, and I never had any problem passing and stuff. And yet, not one scholarship, not one. I never had a chance. Never had a chance. And I'm not crying about it. I'm just saying that it's just a fact, right? Because whatever happens to you, the struggle is good, because you learn things in the struggle. That's really, nobody knows, and you learn from it and you work with that, right? I just think that, of course, some people have it harder, and I'm sure, right? But I learned from everything and I didn't know that until much later that I remember that. So anyway, after I went on to college, one day I was secretary at Fort Sam Houston, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. It was like, that's the worst job anybody can have, because all you do is type. And at that time, it was like on a typewriter, right? And I also took shorthand, and that was it. I mean, your mind was like limited. That's all you did, right? You found stuff in your inbox, y vamos a hacer el trabajo, ya sácalo, ya. That's all you did. Nothing out of the ordinary. It was the same thing. So finally, after a few years, I guess I was there 5 years, I said, I can't do this anymore. So I quit. My mother and father were so angry. They said, ¿Tienes buen trabajo, Rebecca? I was a G7. I don't know how much but I started off $400 a month. Okay, just for you all to know. That's how much I earned in civil service in 1960. And so my mother and father thought I did the biggest mistake by quitting. But I said, I just can't do this anymore. So I quit and I started going to school. I went to Texas A&I, which is racist as hell. And then I moved here and went to St. Mary's University. And religion and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, de ahí salí, ¿verdad? But let me just say this. At that point, at that time, and you all may have different experiences, I could pay for my tuition. I didn't have one grant, I didn't have one loan, nothing, and none of you can do that now. You can't, sales con un préstamo that you can't get out of for years to come. And I was able to pay, by doing part-time work, I was able to pay all my tuition. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And now you can't do it, even though salaries are better. I'm not saying they're great, but they're better, right? We were doing minimum wage there. It was like $1 an hour then. So anyway, I don't know how you all do it. I don't know how you're going to do it. Your kids. So anyway, finally, and then I got a chance to go to the University of Michigan in 1970, and this was all during the war, the Vietnam War, right? There was a lot of stuff going on in this country, a lot of marches, demonstrations. People were against the war, as I was, because people were going and getting killed there for something that we had no business, no business doing it. And so I went up to Michigan, and it was like totally different from St. Mary's. Oh my God. Acá teníamos, we wore skirts and little shoes. Over there, nobody was wearing bras, for God's sake. I said, what? They were smoking pot on campus. I thought, this is great here. It was, but it was also, there was also so much going on there. The women were getting organized, the women's movement, and it was fantastic. It was all these women talking about stuff. And then the gays were getting together, the Mexicanos were getting together, the black people, of course, they were fantastic. And so I got into that, right? I got into that whole idea, you know what, we can change things by getting together, demanding stuff. And so it was there that was when the United Farm Workers was promoting the Great Boycott. And so Cesar came to Detroit. Detroit is a big union town. And so Detroit is next to Ann Arbor. And so we went to see Cesar in Detroit, and he said, you know what, you guys need to work with the union. And so most of us did. Most of us came back and worked with the union. I did. I got married up there, and then we moved down to McAllen in 1973 to McAllen to work. And my husband then worked with the ACLU, and they were together in the Union Hall. And then because there was a change in the leadership down there, then I was named to be the director of the United Farm Workers in Texas. That was in 1975. And so I had just had 2 babies. I had 2 little babies. I think there was a picture up there of me and some of them. And then, so I said, okay, I'll just do it for a little bit, because I have these little babies. How can I do this with 2 little babies? And so Cesar says, Rebecca, Dolores has 11. So I said, okay, I can't argue that. I can't argue that point. And Dolores, she was fantastic. So then I started working in the union in the Valley. And the Valley, as you know, is like the lower Rio Grande Valley is noted. It's got a lot of high population, right? A lot of people live there. Y'all, anybody from there? Are y'all from San Antonio? So anyway, and then at that time you had fanfurrias here, right? You had the border, the river, and then 75 miles from the river you had fanfurrias and Sarita and all those Saritas, right? All those little places where you have to check. They'll check. It's the second border, and that to me was also totally illegal. What do you mean a second border? There should be one border. What's the second border? Now, of course, we don't have any borders. They're everywhere. And that's what I want to talk to you about too today. And so in that area, it's like 75 miles, wide, and then about 100 and something miles long. A lot of farm workers were trapped in there because who were undocumented, remember? So they couldn't get out. They couldn't get out this way, and they couldn't get out that way. So they stayed there. And so it was a population of people who had no documents, and the growers absolutely knew who was documented, who wasn't documented, and they would play them off. If you want to work here, I'll pay you whatever I want to pay. And if you don't like that, you know what? There's somebody else that can take your place. And so wages were low, people were so poor. And in 1975, there was very little public benefits, and nothing for people without papers, right? There's nothing, but there was very little benefits. I remember working with a woman who had at that time it was called Aid for Dependent Children, AFDC. I don't know if y'all knew that. I don't know what they call it now, but she had children. She was alone and stuff. And so they never believed that she didn't have a man living there. So they would come, they would come and check. They would see who's living with you, right? And then they would never believe that she didn't have any food. So they would open all her cabinets. It was insane what they do to poor people. Nada respeto. Nothing. It's like, we own you. We can do anything we want. We want to. And it was a grind on me. It's like, how do poor people survive in this country? Uno es que pierdes tiempo pidiendo una ayuda, ¿verdad? Ponte en línea. Now, of course, it's online, and that's even worse because people don't know how to do that stuff anymore. But at that time, it was getting in line, and they would stay in line half a day when they could be working, but they had to be there because they had to ask for food stamps. And that was the irony of farm workers, right? Is that they picked the food that everybody ate 3 times a day, and yet they had to go and ask for food stamps. And one of the reasons was that the growers, and let me just make clear, growers are the farmers. A lot of people, when I say growers, a lot of people don't know what that means. It's the farmers, right? They would not let them take home any of the produce that they picked, porque dejan mucho, ¿verdad? There's a lot of stuff that remains in the fields, and they said, no, you can't take anything home. And so they couldn't take anything home at the end of their day. So then they had to get in line and go get food stamps, and all of it was shameful, the way poor people were treated. It's shameful. And it's the same right now. It's the same right now. I know people complain, sometimes people complain and say, yeah, mira, tiene una Lone Star card. Pues qué, y qué? Mira, está comprando dulces. It's like, you can't do anything with people without people criticizing. Está comprando sodas. So anyway, that all that experience to me has made me always work for people who will live on the margins, and you know who those are, right? People who don't have access, people who are undocumented right now, people who are poor, people who don't have a chance at anything. I've always been on their side, and I'm comfortable. Even though I worked with the union 30 years and I was paid absolutely nothing, even that, I'm comfortable now. No estoy mal. You know what I'm saying? And when you're old, you worry about that. So I have my little Social Security check. My daughter lives with me and her daughters, and so we're good, right? We're absolutely good. But can you imagine having absolutely nothing? Y yo no tengo mucho, ¿verdad? Like nothing. Híjole. So anyway, when I was working with farm workers in the valley, although there had been a strike in 1966, where the workers marched from Rio Grande City to Austin to ask for a minimum wage law, which there was none in 1966. The conditions at that time were even worse. Well, it's the same, right? Hard work in the sun, paid very badly, and treated like you're nothing, right? And so that really instigated the strike in the melon fields and the march. They marched 500 miles from there to here, and you think, well, it's not that far, right? But what they did was they zigzagged. So from Rio Grande City, they went to through San Juan, and then to Elsa, and then they came back to Calpurrias, and then went back to Kingsville. So they zigzagged, and Corpus Christi, and then they came back to San Anto. So and as they were zigzagging, they were talking to everybody on the road. They would be housed by the different churches along the way, and so they were educating people as they were walking. So so marches are really pilgrimages, really. I've always thought that's the greatest idea, is that as you walk, you not only understand yourself a little bit better, because now you say, well, I'm committed to something, right? But you also, tell this guy, hey, I wonder why they're marching. Then they become to be educated. So it's an educational process. I think it's one of the best forms of education that I have ever known, is marching. The other is boycotting. I did boycotts in front of grocery stores for years. And I was here also, so I was at the HEB on San Anto and military. I don't know for how long. But anyway, but I've always said that everyone needs to do a boycott, because you will see very, very good people and very, very bad people, and you will understand why you're doing that by the reactions of people. Because if you don't understand, you'll leave, right? You'll say, hey, I'm not going to put up with this stuff. But you will understand it very clearly. And so we would get all kinds of people. But what I understood also from all of that was that you can't, what's the word? No puedes tú pensar, well, this person is going to be ugly to me. And just by looking at them, like, que tienen una cara o algo así, so they're going to be mean. And it turned out they wouldn't be, right? So you can't really ascertain what the person is going to do by just looking at them. You have to talk to them. And so that's where I got into the business of talking to people, convincing them about the fact that grapes had chemicals on them and that they should not buy them until we force the industry to quit using those chemicals on those grapes. Let me just say that to you right now. How many of you eat grapes? Mira. Well, let me just tell you this. The EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, is supposed to watch over the chemicals that are being developed, right, and used in fields and stuff. And the chemical industry, has so many chemicals out there that they haven't checked to see what are safe and what isn't safe. They haven't gone through that process, right? And so a lot of chemicals are being used. You don't know the effects of those chemicals. And the product that looks pretty is probably the one that's had the most chemicals, like the apples. Oh, forget that. I really, I really have to be very careful about it, because when I go and look for stuff, I have to say, well, I really want to eat that, whether it's got chemicals or not. I'm just going to eat it. But the chemical industry right now works alongside the food industry, and those are the growers, the agribusiness, and they're working together. You look so sad. No, one time I was talking to some deaf kids at the school of the deaf, yeah. And not talking to them, but they were translating, and said they didn't understand, right? They didn't understand what was going on. They said, can we eat peanut? But they were asking me everything. Can we eat jelly? Can we eat strawberry jelly? Can you eat peanut butter? Oh, it was horrible. I thought I had to go back on everything because they would have starved to death. So anyway, the course of my work with the union, which was for 30 years, was a learning experience, and that's really where you learn the truth of this country, of people, but of also the industry. And so I retired in 2005 after 30 years. I worked 3 years for the National AFL-CIO, and which is where I made my money, and that's why I'm comfortable now. They paid me good. They paid me real good. They gave me a good severance package, and so con eso vivo mejor ahora. But for the 30 years with the United Farm Workers, it was probably the best education I've ever had. That, along with the education that I had when I was growing up. So I paired that because I knew the truth of it, right? And then I paired that with the work that we were doing. When we were organizing farm workers, one of the things that we did was we started looking to change laws, and so we did a lot of work in Austin. And that was in the 80s. It was Mark White was governor, Lieutenant Governor, Hobby was lieutenant governor. They were so good in terms of making sure that our laws were passed. But it was not easy. We would, this is how we had to do it. And I guess what you and I were saying earlier was that it has never been easy for Mexicans to do anything. Everything has been so hard. So everything you have to work so hard at it to get a little bit of movement. And now of course we're being thrown back. But when we started pushing legislation, we had to organize workers. We had to register them to vote. We had to educate them on how to vote, on how voting happens. They then endorsed candidates who they thought were going to work for them in Austin, and locally in the county, and then they themselves went to lobby for the legislation in Austin. And so we did everything. We started at the very bottom, and then we went all the way up to Austin. The first thing, though, they also did was they've had to file lawsuits. In every bill that is passed to protect workers in this state, they've always excluded farm workers. So like workers' comp was our most important bill because there were so many accidents in the fields. And so the workers' compensation law that had been passed in Texas had said workers' comp for everybody except for farm workers. Same thing for unemployment comp. Everybody except farm workers. Pesticides, right to know, everybody except farm workers. And so in every one of those laws, we had to first make the case in district court that the exclusion was discriminatory under the Equal Rights Amendment. The Equal Rights Amendment, as you may know, is for women, right? That women shouldn't be discriminated against because of their sex. Well, we said, well, let's look at equal rights for people of an ethnic race. And so we won those. We had to go all the way to the Supreme Court of the state of Texas, and we won it. And the Supremes in Texas said, okay, you won the case, but now you have to go and pass a bill. And so we went there, and then we had to do some more work. And so then we had to take the bill and try to convince the majority of people in the House, the majority of people in the Senate to vote for it. And let me tell you, that was not hard. That was not easy. It was still. There's 150 state reps in the House, and there's 31 in the Senate. So we had to get in the House 76 to vote for us, and we barely would get that amount, even though we had won the court case. And so nada ha sido fácil, ninguna cosa. And workers would go up, and they would lobby. They would go to each legislator and lobby for this piece of legislation. And one year, we thought, I don't know if y'all have ever been to a lobby, but lobbyists do real cute little things that they leave at the desk of the legislator, like a plexiglass state of Texas, real pretty art, and they'll say, well, vote for this bill and stuff, and they leave it there. And so anyway, so we said, well, what can we do? So what we did is we took onions, good onions. We had all kinds of onions. We took them, and then we put a toothpick in it, and then we had a little sticker that said, please vote for this bill. And so the farm workers went, and they put an onion in all the legislators' desks, and the legislators later said, man, we walked in and we smelled all these onions. So it was a good trick, right? Because they saw it and they smelled it and they remembered it, right? But we still just barely passed laws. At any rate, the laws were passed, and we saw these big changes in workers' comp. Workers could get unemployment compensation, which is really saves families, because workers only work seasons, right? They work 6 weeks here, they're unemployed, and then it's hard work. So unemployment comp and pesticide right to know where workers are told what chemicals they're exposed to. Then we raised the minimum wage. We banned the use of the short handle hoe, which is a hoe this long, and we banned the use of that. And that was because of you're bent over like that all day working. It's just a killer. It's a killer. So we were able to pass in those 4 or 5 years, all the farm worker legislation that this state of Texas has ever passed. in those 5 years. And then what happened was we got a Republican governor, and that was Clements, after Ann Richards. And after that, we haven't been able to move it in the state of Texas. And that's where we are right now. And that, of course, that change is impacting us even now. So y'all have any questions? I've talked so long already. Any questions? Y'all want to know anything? Yeah.
What year were the things that got passed? What years?
That was when Mark White was there. I think 80 to 85 or 86, something like that. Mark White and Bill Hubbard. We started our conventions. We would have farm worker conventions in FAR and in San Juan in 1979, and every year. And those conventions were good to organize workers, because then they would come and they would say what they wanted to say at the conventions, and then we would invite the legislators to come and say, well, this is what we want you to do. So it was a good way of interaction between the workers and the legislators, and that's where we learned who was the best candidate for us and that kind of stuff. It was a real good form of introducing farm workers to this, and for them to show that their power, right? Because if you have 1,000 farm workers sitting and we used to have 1,000 farm workers sitting in the conventions, that shows a lot of power. And then farm workers themselves don't feel alone, right? And so when they say, oh, look at all this crowd, and then they feel like they have more power. It was a lot. It was a lot. Let me just say this: it was a lot of work, and I was there. Anything else? Yeah.
How did you manage being a woman at that time, right? Because you said you're a woman, you're Mexican, right? All the things against us. What was it like to be a mujer in like a mostly all-male circle?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. If you're a woman and you have a leadership position, you attract other women to come and join you. And what we saw, and it was different in Texas than it was in California, we saw so many women leaders form, and they came forward. And I used to go to, the basis of our organizing were house meetings. So we would go to somebody's house in a colonia. Everybody knows colonias, right? In the valleys where poor people have their houses, and these were where farm workers lived because they didn't have any money. And so we would, we get to know an individual. Says, can you pull a house meeting? Just invite your neighbors, people who you trust, and just no more than 8 people. So las parejas venían. Because in farm work, families work together, right? It's not just one individual. And so they would all come. We'd have 8 people, and we'd all be sitting in the kitchen. And I remember one meeting that I had just had Sarah, my little girl, 79. And at that time, we had these horrible contraptions that we would carry kids in. But anyway, totally unsafe. But anyway, so she was little, so me la llevé, and so I put her on the kitchen table. And so Zulema Hernandez, God rest in peace, she just passed away. She had a lot of children, and she had just had one, Sarah's age. And so I said, so after the house meeting, one of the questions is, would you like to join the union, right? And so she had these bright eyes. She was looking at me. She said, yeah, man, I want. And she would look at her husband, Paulo, and he would like duck his head. He didn't want to join the union. But anyway, she said, well, I'm joining, and she joined. And so what happened is that when they saw me hauling a baby around, and they had a baby, it was like they felt that they didn't have any, and they could tell their husbands, look, Rebecca, therefore I can too. And so I saw a lot of women childbearing themselves, right? Our union meetings were, everybody would come, and kids were running around, and so it was like a family thing, right? It was a family thing, and everybody in fact was welcome. And frankly, our leadership was like 50% women, 50% men. So it was very, very good. And so with that, no había tanto machismo, ¿verdad? Porque estaban ahí las mujeres todo el tiempo. And I never, and you know what, I'm sure it happened, you know, I was just like focused on what I had to do. But I just never felt constrained by that at all. Lots of stuff to learn.
What are you up to now?
Well, I'll tell you this. We are in some serious trouble here in San Antonio, okay? I'm telling you that right now. And unless we get really outraged about what's going on with us and immigrants here in San Antonio, all of us are gonna have a target on our backs. Every one of us. Every one of us. I don't care if you're a citizen, I don't care if you're undocumented, whatever. Every one of us. And unless we start doing something and screaming about this as much as we can, this state is because Abbott is like that with Trump. Everything Trump wants to do, Abbott opens the door for him. Everything. And so now, let me just tell you, because this just happened last week, there's 2 laws that happened in this legislature. I mean, in Texas. Let me just say this. In Texas, we have, how many? 68 Democrats and, well, no, the difference between 150 and that, Republicans. Republicans, 82. Republicans want to win 12 more state rep seats in Texas so they can have a veto-proof house in the state legislature. If they have 100, whatever, you know, whoever the governor is, if he wants to veto something, they can say, no, we can't. We have got to make sure that that doesn't happen. So one of the things I'm pushing is that I hope all of you register to vote. Are you all? Everybody in your family? Everybody okay? 2 laws were passed in 2023 and in 2025. SB 4 and SB 8. And you can have, I have a flyer over there for you all to take. SB 4 and SB, Senate Bill 4 and Senate Bill 8 allow law enforcement agencies and peace officers to, that's the old bill, show me your papers, right? They can stop you for whatever reason they want and ask you for your papers. And so you know that citizens are being taken to Delhi, right? Y'all know that, right? So I don't know why they don't believe you. For example, if I should have my passport with me, you know, why wouldn't they believe me? Well, they don't believe you because they don't want to believe me. And these guys are not trained. There's no training necessary. They just say, okay, you can do this stuff. And so these 2 bills, these 2 laws are enforced now. On Friday, the Supreme Court said, go ahead and let it happen. And we don't know what it is and how we're going to see. But we know that right now, immigration, the highway patrol, immigration highway patrol are picking up people at the bus stops, in their houses, wherever they can, and they're doing it very quietly. They learned that their experience in Minnesota was not to do it that way, right? In Minnesota, you know, it was so obvious, and they had the media there because they saw everything. So they said, well, we won't do that anymore. So now they do it very quietly. And I have not seen it. You said you have seen it, right? In St. Jude's. How many have seen them doing this stuff? You haven't seen it? You have? She has. And what they do is they stop, they put the kid or the parent or whoever in their car, and they move quickly to get out of the place so that nobody can video them or take pictures of them. And so we don't see it. But what we do know is that they're taking them to Delhi, and they're all people of color. Just saying, right here, people of color are going to be Mexicans, Latinos. Okay? So they're, as you know, they bought this detention center on the east side. Have y'all been there? 10 Houston, and then the loop 410, right? A little bit south of 10 on loop 410. It's a huge, huge warehouse. It's enormous. And they say they want to open it up by the end of September. Here in St. We cannot let that happen. We have got to start demonstrating as much as we can, wherever we can, And I have 2 events that are coming up soon where we're going to start doing that. One is Juneteenth. You know, the African Americans, that's when they were freed, or that's when they heard they were freed. And June the 20th, we're starting at Sam Houston High School, and I don't know the route, and ending at Comanche. And although this is for African Americans, and they've always used that, you know, to celebrate that, but this time we're being invited to go and be part of that, take signs, and just start making, you know, a lot of noise about this thing, because it's over there on that side of town. It's actually very close to Sam Houston High School. It's a little bit. My daughter teaches at Davis, which is right there. It's right there. It's about 5 minutes from there. So that's one, Juneteenth, June 20th. And I have a flyer. You can take pictures of it and take it home. But we need to let a lot of people know about this. The other one is going to be held on September the 12th. We think that this place is going to be operational by September the 30th. And so on September the 12th, we're going to have 10,000 people marching. We don't have any information yet, which is still kind of like an idea that we're trying to work. But we're going to have to start showing our strength. All of La Raza here is going to have to start getting out there and start showing our strength, because we cannot let this happen. And it is happening. That is the problem, is that it is happening. And then once that happens, then we have to make sure that everybody votes in November, and make sure that we run. Abbott is on the ballot. You know that, right? You know that. We got to make sure he loses. And let me just say this. Gina Hinojosa, I love her, but he has so much money. He has millions of dollars. And she's new, right? She's young. She doesn't have the money that she does. But we have the numbers. We have the numbers. If we would only come out and vote. Because this is scary times for us here in Texas. And so it's those things, right? We got to get ready for them. But all kinds of other little things that are happening too. I work with a group of people in faith-based groups here. Let me get this. I work with a group called the Interfaith Welcome Coalition. I don't know if y'all have heard that. Have you? We have done, since 2014, when immigrants started coming into this country, we have been at the bus station, you know, greeting them, helping them figure out where they're going and all that. That was when they could move around this country. Now, of course, nobody is at the bus station because they're not letting them cross the river. Nobody is coming across it. So anyway, we're in such bad shape. It isn't why I just want to cry about it. So anyway, next, this is a flyer. I want each one of you to take this with you. The next Tuesday at 10 a.m. in front of the cathedral, we're having a press conference to talk about SB 4 and SB 8. Join us there, right? And I want you to take this. I'm putting this. One of the things that we're asking everybody who is there, and these are all people from different churches around the city, is that they put this flyer in their bulletin. In their bulletin, you know, the churches have a little bulletin. Put this flyer in there, and this is what the flyer says. I'll read it to you. We are called to take action. I'm saying the churches because they have all these people praying in churches every Sunday, ¿verdad? Y digo yo, pues esta gente debería de andar, ¿verdad? Haciendo cosas, you know, levantando el humo. So this was my idea. Get everybody to put this in their bulletins, insert in the bulletins. And maybe everybody will read it, hopefully, and maybe take some action. So this is what it says. We are called to take action. 2 Texas laws give the green light to law enforcement all over Texas to detain and deport immigrants. All over the state of Texas. In every county. The 2025 Texas Law Senate Bill 8 and the 2023 Texas Law Senate Bill 4 expands Senate Bill 8 significantly and lets police stop any person anywhere in Texas who they suspect entered or re-entered the U.S. illegally and then detain and deport them. Okay. They can stop and detain and deport anybody who they suspect. What's that word, suspect? Yeah, come on.
Whatever.
Suspect, it could be anybody, right? Okay, I suspect you. Yeah. I suspect you. And they can stop you for any reason. Any reason. You didn't put your blinker on, you know, you're gonna turn, your backlight is not working, or just for any reason, or just for any reason. And so they stop you, and unless people know their rights to shut up and not say a word, don't answer any of their questions, then maybe they're protected. But people don't. People are so honest. They're so scared of police officers. They'll say anything. Just don't say anything. Say I'm protected by the Fifth, Amendment. I have to protect myself. But people are just, I think that's also the fear. The 2023 SB4 is by far the most dangerous law for people of color, our neighbors, and for us. The San Antonio ICE office, serving Central Texas, already ranks 4th in the nation for arrests. 4th in the nation for arrests. Arrests are being done quietly by ICE, state troopers, and now by any law enforcement officer. So we're trying to set up a meeting with McManus to see what that means, right? What he's going to do here. But let me tell you this, Constable Bovedich up in that part of the county, Hollywood Park, Balcones Heights, St. Hedwig, China Grove, and Shady Oaks have all signed agreements with ICE that they will do this. Those little podunk towns. Hollywood Park is over on Blanco and 1604. We know of a police officer from Hollywood Park eyeballing these lawn, this group of, a crew of people who do the lawns, saw them, and then later, as they were driving, stopped them and picked them up and deported them. And then they called later to the crew leader, right, the owner, and they told him, well, they were already in Mexico City, like in a flasher. So they deported them right in, they just dropped them in Mexico. So those little towns, and we're trying to find out the jurisdiction. For example, if you drive through Balcones is where Wonderland is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what does that mean? I mean, do they follow you if you're leaving Balcones? Do they follow you into San Antonio?
Sometimes they do, yes.
I bet there was. So we're not sure I did an open records request to try to find out. How are you going to handle this? But we know they're doing it already.
They always stop by the Wells Fargo and 410.
Right there?
Jack in the Box and 410.
14 and what? Ferris wheel?
Yeah, Ferris wheel.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
They always stop. No, like every time I pass, there's somebody always stops.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And that's Balcones.
Yeah. About 1 time.
So anyway, and they're getting rewarded for it. For every person they stop and deport, they get money for it. And we think that they get personally rewarded for it. For example, that money goes into the pocket of the police officer. So the question then is, are you then going to say, okay, I'm going to stop this guy here because I think I'll get money for him? Or am I going to go to a place that's being robbed? So therefore your security, everybody's security is going to be impacted. So then I asked a question for this young woman who does this all the time. I said, because this is for peace officers. I said, what is a peace officer? And that could be anybody, right? So I asked the security guy at the HEB the other day, I said, are you a licensed peace officer? And he is. So I'm thinking this security guy at HEB might be able to stop me and ask me for my papers. Good Lord! The hell? So anyway, when SB4 is enforced, any law enforcement officer can arrest and detain anyone they suspect are in this country illegally. This can happen in all parts of Texas. This is the show me your papers law. No one will be safe. What should we people of faith do? Talk to others in your, and this is what we're saying, we're asking them to do, is talk to people in your organizations, your friends and family. Take necessary action to oppose these laws and close down the Eastside Detention Center, and then stay informed and then get involved and volunteer. So take this, it's got some links there if y'all want to look at it. Well, I think we really got to blanket the city, and especially around the Eastside Detention Center, but for all of us, right? And sometimes people say, oh, no me van a decir cosas. I think we got to get over that. They're gonna take you. They're gonna take you, okay? Get over your fears.
Rebecca, can you say again the areas that have already agreements with ICE? You said Hollywood Park.
Hollywood Park, Balcones Heights, St. Hedwig, Sandy Oaks, and China Grove. And Precinct 3, Bobadich, Constable Precinct 3. And that's a huge chunk of people, right? And you know what constables do? They knock on doors to evict people. So can you imagine what they're doing? Yeah, show me your papers too, ¿verdad? So they do that, and
then it's got a double-edged sword, because like tax and property is all screwed up here in Texas and San Antonio. That stuff is supposed to be open records for people for the normal person to be able to enter it on auction and stuff like that, but it's all guarded behind memberships and things like that here in Texas. So then you're evicting people, deporting them, and then stealing their property.
isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? You always wonder what's the ultimate motive, right? Wow. Well, that's what they did historically, right?
Yeah. It's the New Lone Rangers.
Right. Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions
Over here,
for
she had.
Rebecca?
Well, I remember, I believe in the fall, Governor Abbott, he did a press release saying that his expectation was that state troopers, the police, all these different agencies, they would all come under one initiative to, I guess, do whatever he's asking to be done.
Well,
And
go ahead.
I'm very concerned because San Antonio Police Department, we know that they overspend and they're advocating for 65 additional police officers, and they keep pushing this. So I am concerned.
Well, there's a big issue going on with the budget, right?
Yes.
That we don't have money anymore, and these guys want more police. 66% of our budget, what little budget we have, goes to public safety, which includes police and firefighters, right? 66%. The rest of us who are looking for, sidewalks and that kind of stuff, we only get, what, 34% of the budget because all of us is in the pocket of the police department? Come on. No, they're doing the whole budget. There's gonna have to be town halls here. I don't know, where do you all live? You live in Terry's district? She's gonna have 2 town halls on the budget.
Yeah, our center's 78207, so we do, we're in District 5,
Yeah.
and we call Terry a lot
Good.
for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Like a lot, like they're like, Kelly, you again? And I'm like, yes, girl, me again.
Oh, yeah.
So-
We gotta learn how to do that, really, all of us. We gotta learn how to email them and how to call them on the phone. Because then they want to fund Project Marvel, right? The arena. And so, anyway, aparte de todo eso, they're multi-billionaires, these guys, the owners, and they want us to pay for everything. They want us to pay for it. ¿Crees? And we don't have any money in the budget. And I'm working on that too. So es que hay muchísimo que hacer.
You could get involved anyway, right, Rebecca? There's so many different
There are,
ways for people
well,
to get
wherever,
involved.
every morning you wake up and there's something that you can do, right? Because there is, every morning you get up. But this Project Marvel thing, we're working against it. We're working against it, and there's gonna be a vote on the bond, and the bond, is how we fix our streets. But they want most of the money to go to fix the streets around the arena. And we're fighting against that. And we're saying, no, you pay for it. You billionaires pay for it, instead of us pay for it. Anyway, it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. Terry's okay on that issue, but we only have 5 people who are okay on that, and we need 6. So let me just say who the others are. The mayor's good, of course. Mark White, we have there, Misty Spears, 9 and 10. Ivalice Mesa should be with us, but she is not with us. She's in 8. Anybody live in 8? Y'all live in 8? No. 7 is Marina Alderete. You can forget Marina. She's gonna run for mayor. She wants to be mayor. And then, what's the other one? There's another one.
Is it Jalen? Is 2?
No, Jalen is good. Oh, it's Sukkar, 1.
1.
Sukkar. She is Are you in her district? Oh my God,
Yeah,
she's horrible,
yeah.
Lord. So anyway, we have a lot of work to do in all kinds of areas. Nos se van a fregar todavía más. And you know that that San Antonio has the biggest economic divide in the country, with more poor people, and we can't get out of it, right? We cannot get out of the poverty in this. Why? Well, because of this, right? When we moved into San Antonio, we moved to Trinity, right? That was where we could afford the rent, right? Where we could afford it. And you know, still, I mean, everybody who's poor moves over here, right? That shouldn't be. Should be way climbing out of it. Better know. And now they're screwing our public education system so badly that, yeah. Anyway, I think we absolutely need to vote. Absolutely, we need to change everything, and we're going to have to stick to it. And it's going to take a long time to get our institutions back on their feet because they destroyed it. They've destroyed it, and it takes a while to get it back to somewhere where we can live with it. It's going to take a long time. And look, y'all are young. I'm done soon, I think. I don't know how many more years I can live, but God has given me health, good health. I think part of it is because I'm just so angry all the time. I get up angry. But I mean, it's just a work that we all are going to have to take on. That is our responsibility. Okay. And when people argue with you, you say, nah, you know what? We're going to have to talk. And you've got to convince them this is not right. It's not right. And entre raza, it breaks my heart to see all these, you know, people being ugly to immigrants. Así es.
Any other questions for Rebecca?
Yeah, I've talked a long time.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We really appreciate you. Un aplauso for Rebecca. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Also, this will eventually be available on our YouTube channel.